Welcome to the Delmarva Almanac. Each week we connect you to the best of Delmarva. Now here's Naturalist Dave Wilson talking with Jim White of the Delaware Nature Society about snakes.
In my former life as director of the Maryland Coastal Bays program, I always had lots of inquiries about snakes. Which ones were venomous? How many species do we have? Where and when am I most likely to encounter them? Unfortunately, due to habitat loss from development, conversion of native forests to pine monoculture, persecution, and even the pet trade, many species on Delmarva are struggling. In the studio today, we have Jim White from the Delaware Nature Society and co-author, with his wife Amy, of The Amphibian and Reptiles of Delmarva. Jim is a native Delawarean and has worked for the Delaware Nature Society for 33 years, where he is currently serving as the Senior Fellow for Land and Biodiversity Management. He teaches herpetology at the University of Delaware. He's going to shed some light on the mysteries of the peninsula snakes. Jim, welcome.
Hi, Dave. Great to be here.
So, Jim, how many species of snakes are there on Delmarva, and which ones are venomous?
Well, we have 19 species that are known to occur here. Only one is venomous, and that's the northern and southern copperhead.
And what's the status of copperheads? Is this something I'm likely to see, or I can go out and see, and how likely am I to get bitten? That's a question people always ask me, which I chuckle at, but I'll let you answer that.
Well, the copperheads are very uncommon. They are distributed throughout the peninsula, at least in the northern part of the peninsula, in one colony up near Wilmington. And then as you get down here to the mid or southern end of the peninsula, they become a bit more common. However, the likelihood of finding one, let alone being bit by one, is pretty remote.
Yeah, I've noticed in my time down here is that usually when I see them in the evenings or roadkills, unfortunately, in the night in September, early October. Can you elaborate on maybe why that is?
Yeah, well, first of all, they're very secretive, so you're not apt to just find them as you're walking a trail or just wandering around in the daytime. They tend to be nocturnal, so they come out at night. We see them on roads because they will come out on a road, especially after a warm day, to basically obtain the heat from the road. So sometimes they'll come out and they'll just rest on the road like a warm rock. We also see them, probably the most of the time, is when they've been killed by cars.
And how is their status? Are they increasing, decreasing? Is there a sense that the conservation community has on what their status currently is?
Well, most of us feel that they are having some serious problems and declining markedly. Probably most snakes are, maybe more than we actually know. Habitat loss throughout the peninsula is decimating these species. Plus, the more traffic on the roads today. Mortality by cars has just risen tremendously over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I know that vehicular traffic is a big problem for a lot of species, even salamanders sometimes. But also the habitat, the quality of the habitat that they're in. Can you talk about some of these snakes' needs on the Delmarva and what kind of forests they might live in or fields?
Yeah, most of the snakes are forest dwellers, so they like a nice, healthy, mixed deciduous coniferous forest down here on the mid-peninsula. Up north, they primarily found in rocky slope areas up on the Piedmont, but they really do need a fairly large, somewhat healthy woodlands, which is fairly rare today.
What are some of the most common snake species that you'll see here on Delmarva?
Well, probably the two most common are the eastern rat snake and the eastern garter snake. However, the northern water snake is a close third. In fact, this species is seen by a lot of fishermen, people who spend time around ponds, other wetlands.
How about, we talk a lot about northern water snakes, which some of us who are bold enough to handle snakes, we know that northern water snakes and black racers can be pretty aggressive sometimes. They don't like to be held. But some people also, we talk about water snakes, tell me that they see moccasins, that they think moccasins live here. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, most of our snakes, at least the larger snakes, like you said, the eastern rat snake, the black racer, northern water snake, they are relatively aggressive. They'll protect themselves by biting if you were to handle them. Many people feel that when a snake is aggressive, it automatically means it's a venomous species. And the northern water snake, because it spends its time almost always near the water, many people think or believe it's a water moccasin, which does not occur on the Delmarva Peninsula. As far north as we know it comes is Newport News in Virginia, on the other side of the Chesapeake.
I wanted to ask you too, a lot of snakes have different patterns when they're juveniles and when they're adults. And a lot of snakes, when they're juveniles, look very similar to venomous snakes or other snakes. Can you maybe talk about why that is and what snake species look different when they're juveniles?
Yeah, several species, especially the larger ones, when they're young, are boldly marked. They might have bands on their back. They may be somewhat colorful, red colorations, really bright yellows. This probably is a form of camouflage for the young snakes so that they're not eaten by birds, other mammals, and maybe even other snakes. As some of these species, like the black rat snake, the eastern rat snake, the northern water snake, even the black racer, as they get larger, they lose this pattern, and they become, in the case of the racer and the eastern rat snake, entirely black. The water snake becomes almost a very dark brown. However, when these snakes are young and they're showing that pattern, this is another reason, not a good one, but a reason that people think that they're venomous. As soon as they see a pattern on a snake, they for some reason become frightened of it, and they treat it like a venomous snake, and usually that means death to the snake.
I want to switch gears here a little bit and talk about what species eat which critters and what eats snakes.
Sure. Well, many of our snakes eat rodents or warm-blooded animals, rodents and birds, mice, and bird species like the eastern rat snake, the corn snake that we have on the peninsula that's very rare. Then other species like the northern water snake, the red-bellied water snake, they eat fish and frogs. And then there's a couple of species, the eastern king snake and the eastern milk snake, that actually eat other snakes. So there's a variety of diet depending on the species, for anything from eating other snakes all the way up to eating birds and mammals.
Do king snakes have a preference of which species of snake they eat, or is there any science on that?
Well, no, the science says they'll eat about any snake that they come across. Now, there is a lot of lore about king snakes eating venomous snakes, and they will. They will eat venomous snakes. They will eat copperheads. They're immune to the venom. So one of the reasons they're called king snakes is because of that fact. They're the king of snakes because they can actually eat a venomous snake.
Well, thank you, Jim. Today we've been talking to Jim White from the Delaware Nature Society. To learn more about snakes on Delmarva, you can go to delnature.org or visit delmarvaalmanac.com/nature.
Well, that's all for this edition of the Delmarva Almanac. Be sure to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and next week join us to learn more about our local culture and get connected to our natural wonders. If you'd like to become an underwriter for this program, visit delmarvaalmanac.com/support. We'd like to thank our community partners, the Friends of Delmarva Public Radio, the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, and underwriters eatdrinkbuyart.com for their help in bringing this program to you, our audience. Our theme music was provided by Brightside Studio. This show has been a Moonshell production. Thanks for listening. Until we meet again, may the rhythms and tides of Delmarva bring you good fortune.